is Black Monday here in the NFL season. I'm Josh Butts. Stan, the Jet fan, is with us in Connecticut. And we're going to talk about everything that has happened leading up to right now in the NFL coaching carousel on No Butts About It right after this. All right, Stan, we've got a lot going on here. It's Black Monday. We knew some of these coaches were going to get fired. They had to have known too. There were some surprises about who got kept, though. So I guess let's first start off with who was the most surprising to you that kept their job?
That's a hard one. But I'm probably going to go with Brian Daboll. I mean, he's one who I thought was, his firing was coming the entire season. I was expecting him to get fired 100%. I thought Schoen was also going to get fired. And, the fact that they both kept their jobs is really surprising to me.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Brian Daboll as well. He really just ever since that one season that he won Coach of the Year has just kind of fallen off. And then Schoen, with everything that happened with Saquon Barkley, I just kind of thought that would be the nail in the coffin for him. And then you kept Daniel Jones, sacrificed Saquon Barkley, and then you end up getting rid of both, right? Neither of them are on the team anymore. So just terrible general manager skills from both those guys. And what I thought was funny about that press release that the Giants issued was they started it off with, "We felt that it was necessary to say." To me, if you feel like it's necessary to say that your coach and your GM are staying, you should maybe consider it a little bit longer, because that means that there's talk. That means that they didn't do something. And so that one surprised me. Another one that the GM surprised me, the head coach didn't necessarily surprise me, was Chris Ballard with the Indianapolis Colts. I am shocked he still has a job. Shane Steichen is in his second year as a head coach, but I tell you what, this is the most upset I have ever seen Colts fans. I'm here in Indiana, and they are broken. There are fans legitimately talking about not watching the Colts next year. Pat McAfee has said he's not going to buy season tickets next year. And I grew up in the Peyton Manning era, so I was blessed, and in the Andrew Luck era, but this is just awful. They have been unable to replace Andrew Luck. Anthony Richardson doesn't look promising, and they're making no changes, except for Gus Bradley, the defensive coordinator. And I think he was kind of a sacrificial lamb. Obviously, he needed to be fired. That defense has not been good. They averaged 25.1 points per game allowed this season. Tackling was an issue. The team has said, they've had team leaders come out and say that there's just really no vision for this team. And so they had to change something. And I think Gus Bradley became that guy. I agree with this firing, and I think that they should have done more. Stan, do you have any thoughts on what has happened with the Indianapolis Colts?
The Colts have always been this team of just, stars that, or in my memory, of stars who just couldn't get it done. And I think that's what Andrew Luck is. I know you look very fondly upon him, but to me, as an outsider looking at the Colts, that's what I felt watching Andrew Luck, watching T.Y. Hilton, and now watching JT, right? It's a lot of guys, really good guys, some of the best of their positions in the league, who just don't have the team around them to get it done. And with Luck, that's what you saw. You saw a very good quarterback who was promising from day one, who people liked from day one, who got along with his teammates, but his team just wasn't able to construct the best roster around him. And you've seen that with this current regime as well. And I think to a certain extent, these teams are holding on to head coaches, and we could talk more into this a little bit later, because there's not really a whole lot of good prospects out there. There's really 2-3 guys maybe who come to mind as good head coach prospects. The rest of them are quite a weird sort of mixed up group.
Okay. And I get it. Like I said, he's only Shane Steichen's second year, but I think what really rubbed me the wrong way with him, it was his final press conference. His second to last press conference, I believe it was. He said, "You can't expect everyone to show up on time every time. No, that needs to be the standard. You should be showing up to practice every day. This is work for them. They should be showing up to work every day on time. And I get stuff happens. If you blow a tire on the highway, like I said with Chuss when we did the show earlier this week. But to say that, just if I'm a veteran player trying to get a Super Bowl ring and I hear my head coach say that, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? Because that's gonna just create laziness. And you already have issues with people thinking your franchise quarterback is soft, and you're just kind of letting that go to me. So, like I said, I understand why they didn't fire him, but at the same time, I think more changes need to be made to the Indianapolis Colts front office and their coaching. But we're not going to see that this year. Like, your team though. Let's pivot over to the Jets for a little bit because I think this is gonna take a while. So why don't you set the context for us? Give us the stage. What is happening with the New York Jets?
Nothing good is a good place to start. All of our stars have either indicated they want to leave or had the worst year of their career just now. And the other stars are all aging out. Guys like CJ Mosley, not really. I think he played 4 games this year, right? So not really having an impact that a player like him you expect to have. We don't have the D line that carried our defense the last 3 years, and we don't have a GM or a head coach now. We probably are not going to have an OC at the end of the season, and ball still in the air on whether we keep our DC. So there's a lot of questions around the Jets organization, and so far, not really any concrete answers. The one thing we know, though, is that it's going to be messed up.
So it's gonna be messed up. So you don't think that they're going through the process correctly right now?
Not really. I think they're casting a net far too wide. I think they should have, been a lot more specific with who they want. I think the fact that they're, turning over every stone, which is the phrase the organization is using, I think it's more of a cop out. I think they just don't have a direction, and for the first time, that's really making itself very obvious, right? Because the only reason you look at every single coach out there, you look at so many different styles and types of coaches, is because you don't know who you want. And that frightens me because I think what's going to happen is the Jets are going to sit and twiddle their thumbs and lose the ability, the chance to hire the best names in this head coaching class. And, we've seen some other head coaches lose their jobs more recently. So there's going to be a lot of competition. And by the time they pick someone, they're going to get stuck with Ron Rivera or someone who just, doesn't inspire a lot of confidence.
So Ron Rivera, let's start with him. You guys already did your interview with Ron Rivera, right? Is that correct?
I believe so.
So what would be your issue with Ron Rivera specifically? If I'm sitting down with Ron Rivera, why would I say you're not going to be the new head coach of the New York Jets?
Well, to answer that question, let's talk about what you want in a coach. And then to start off, I'll say my side of this, right? For a coach, I want you to have a good system, and Ron Rivera has that. I like what he does on the field, but in regards to the locker room side of things and the building a good team of a DC and OC, a coaching staff, that is where I'm a little bit more scared with Ron Rivera. And for that, look at the 2 teams he's been at, right? Look at his years there. Yes, he had some great years with the Panthers, but it all fell apart very quickly because he wasn't able to adapt. He wasn't able to change. Now we saw him move to his second team, and there was no ability to adapt or change, and there's not even an ability to set a good precedent, a good standard with the organization as he started with them. And you saw everyone in the organization just hate being there. You saw players want to leave, and you saw coaches want to leave. So he's not doing a great job of keeping the locker room, and he's not able to establish a good coaching room. Those are 2 big concerns. Now, Ron Rivera, if he can do those 2 things, I am not so concerned about him. But with the fact that he just doesn't have the people skills side of coaching, in my opinion, that to me is a big fear.
Okay. So Ron Rivera he has the head coaching experience, which I think you want in whoever you guys hire, right? Would you want that?
I'm not really looking at too many right now, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators who haven't coached at the head coaching position before. I think you need someone with experience.
Okay. So, you guys did interview Mike Vrabel, although, the Boston reporters have kind of already jumped on that. And I personally think this is what happened too. He used that as a way to leverage the Patriots head coaching position and get Gerard Mayo out of there. And Robert Kraft even came out here today and said, I messed up that whole situation. That one's on me. He took the blame for that. But Gerard Mayo is out as the head coach, so it looks like Mike Vrabel is the favorite to get that position. Uh, I think you wanted Mike Vrabel though. Were you happy about that?
I'd say I was the happiest I would be with this coaching class. I think he is the best head coaching option in this class, and I really don't think it's even that close. Right, the other names they don't really look like good head coaches in the future. They don't look like guys who are going to change this organization around. So I think unfortunately the Jets are likely to get stuck with someone who's going to have a year, maybe 2 years as head coach, and then move on again if we can't get that guy. And quite frankly, I think the only guy who could be that guy is Mike Vrabel.
Okay, so Mike Vrabel, you like him, but he's probably not coming your way, right?
I'd
So
say so.
there, there's one other guy that I see here on the list of people that you guys interviewed. That I guess Matt Nagy also has head coaching experience, but I don't think you want Matt Nagy. But anyway, let's look at the final guy who has said in a radio interview now he is 100% certain that he is getting this job. He will be the next Jets head coach, Rex Ryan. Now, Rex Ryan has already been the Jets head coach, right? He got Mark Sanchez and the Jets to an AFC championship game. So he's going to run it back with this new team, with these younger guys, potentially no Aaron Rodgers, so potentially a rookie quarterback. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, let's look at those three things. I look for in a head coach. First of all, the system. I don't think he will be able to adapt to a modern system, at least not right away, right? I think the fact that he's been out of head coaching since that job, that is a bit scary to me, right? Um, I just don't know how. I mean, think about the last 10 years of the NFL. Think about how quarterbacks move. How most quarterbacks now, young quarterbacks, it's all about using your legs. It's all about play action. Back then in his day, it was all about pocket passing. So it's a different era of the NFL that he's entering now as a head coach if he was to take this job. So that's one big concern there. Number two, locker room. This to me is where Rex Ryan is probably the best on the list, maybe tied with Mike Vrabel, right? I think he had some of the best locker rooms I remember as a Jets fan. And I look at the players from there, guys like Antonio Cromartie talking, so fondly about those days. LaDainian Tomlinson, right? He spent all of his time, his career with the Chargers, and he looks back most fondly upon playing for the Jets. That's pretty crazy to think about. So Rex Ryan did a very good job with his locker rooms. He established a very strong mentality. He gave being a Jet, he gave it some meaning. And you look around the league, right? Being a Patriot, it means something. You know how a Patriot player is supposed to play, how they're supposed to behave. And yeah, that could change with whoever the next head coach is. But even now, as we moved on from Belichick, you've seen being a Patriot is still the same mentality. We need something like that with the Jets. We need a sense of camaraderie, brotherhood. We need a sense of toughness, and that to me is what Rex Ryan is going to bring to the table. So in that second category, A+ for me. It's the third one where I'm getting the most scared, right? Because who is going to be his OC? Who's going to be his DC? Who's going to be his coaching staff? Does he even know any of the guys who are out there in the NFL right now? How would he make a roster of coaches for his coaching staff? I don't really see the connections there.
Yeah, so Rex Ryan, I mean, obviously he's got the background like we've talked about. I feel like he is so confident that he's going to get this job. I thought I'd seen he's already rumored to have started to have assembling his coordinators. So, like I don't know what Woody Johnson told him during the interview or what happened here, but he believes he's got his guys. He believes he will be the next Jets coordinator or head coach. And I'm trying to figure out who his coordinators were going to be that he was looking at, because I did see an article at some point where he was talking about it, but I can't find it right now. So he has a plan. He's coming into this with a plan.
You know, that is, as I just said, my biggest concern, that I don't think he can assemble a good coaching staff. So, let's. I'll need to take a look at this. Maybe next stream I'll have a different opinion on him, because if he can establish a good coaching staff, especially really to me it's the OC, right? I don't think I think on the defensive side he will be able to handle it, right? He dealt with running quarterbacks back in the day. He's dealt with different types of offenses, and I trust his ability to build a good defense, because a lot of defense comes down to mentality and very simple schemes, right? The Jets had the number one defense last year and the year before. Look at the way we played. It was a whole lot of cover two and a whole lot of four-man rushes. There wasn't a lot of blitzing. There wasn't a lot of fancy play out there, but there was a good mentality to the room there. And I think that makes a difference. And Rex Ryan brings that to the table. So the OC part, can you find someone who could create a good, well-functioning and fluid, that's the important word for me, fluid NFL offense? If Rex Ryan can find that guy, that instills a lot of confidence in me.
Yeah, so I found the posts I was looking at. Anthony Lynn, the former Chargers head coach, and the current Commanders, I believe he's the running backs coach and run game coordinator. He is who Rex Ryan is supposedly looking at as offensive coordinator. And then Jim Leonard, who is the Broncos defensive back coach, he would be the defensive coordinator, allegedly. This is all rumored, obviously. But do you have any thoughts on either of those guys? Jim Leonard's kind of deep. The Broncos DBs are good, though.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know too much about either of them. I'll have to do some research. Lynn, the first guy you mentioned, though, if he is the run game coordinator, I will tell you, I've watched a lot of Washington football this year, and they have a very fluid run game, right? The way they use the quarterback position as a running back, I think what Gene Daniels was averaging, like he had plenty of games where he was getting close to 100 yards. He might have broken a couple of games, but they have a very fluid run game, so that instills a lot of confidence in me. But I'll have to do some research and actually, see who these guys are and what they bring to the table before I could, give my full take on that.
Okay, yeah, he's been out of the game for a while, but he's coming in with a plan. Okay. And people who are listening too, people who are watching, feel free to comment. Let us know what you think. You think any of these teams should do. If it's your favorite team, if it's the Jets, if you want them to go a completely different direction than the one we're talking about, feel free to let us know. And what?
And one thing too about the Jets, for if there are Jets fans listening to this, is think back to this Rex Ryan days. At the very least, they were fun, right? That was one thing I remember. And I was in, I think, middle school for most of that, but I remember them being very fun days of Jets football.
Yeah. So one other rumor with the New York Jets before we kind of move on here. Let me know what you think about this. So I was kind of shocked here. The belle of the ball, the darling, the most beautiful girl who just walked into the prom of this coaching cycle is this guy, right? Everybody wants Ben Johnson. And I don't blame them. Offensive coordinator for the Lions, all you got to do is watch the Lions offense. They had a bad performance last night and still put up over 30 points on one of the best defenses in the NFL. So he's doing his job. But I've heard that the Jets aren't expected to interview him. So let's put aside you wanted your guy to have head coaching experience in the past, because I know that Ben Johnson doesn't have that. But would there be any other reasons that you think the Jets are just like, we're not even going to look at Ben Johnson?
I mean, it's a hard one to say, but I think the biggest thing for the Jets with Ben Johnson is I would assume they know he's not going to go there. Ben Johnson has been getting plenty of attention every coaching cycle, and he said no to it every time. He's chosen to stay with his team. So I think Ben Johnson would not want to come to the Jets. So that's my impulse. Whether the organization views it that way, I don't know. But Ben Johnson, he could go and coach the Patriots if he wants to, right? That's a team with 120 million, I think, of cap space. That's a team with a young quarterback with a lot of draft picks coming up. So that considered, compared to the Jets, a team where you don't have that many stars who really want to stay there, right? Garrett Wilson at times of the season looked like he was about to leave. There's not really any plan of quarterback for the future. So I don't think it's realistic at all for Ben Johnson to come to the Jets. That's my first take. And for the Jets, I do think they want someone with head coaching experience.
Well, so you say that, and then I look at who they've interviewed, and I guess like Vance Joseph, he's got some head coaching experience, I believe. Arthur Smith, the current Steelers offensive coordinator, former Falcons head coach. But a lot of these guys, like Bobby Slowick, the Texans offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, you're even interviewing Brian Grease, who's the 49ers quarterback coach, and Josh McCown, who's the Vikings quarterback coach. Both fantastic coaches, don't get me wrong, but they don't really have any experience at that point. And you're still, is that part of that net being cast too wide that you were talking about?
I think so. I think it's a lack of direction. Another option to consider is that they are looking at also their coordinators for the future. They want to get a good idea of who the other folks out there are. And one thing I've told you plenty of times before is I really think a lot of those types of questions don't matter for now for the Jets. You have to get a GM in first, right? And the only coach who I would be comfortable getting before you find a GM is Mike Vrabel, because I think Mike Vrabel can figure it out. I think you let him pick your GM, let him do his job, right? But outside of Mike Vrabel, I don't see a single other coach in this coaching cycle who I would be comfortable hiring before a GM. So there's a lot of questions out there with the Jets. I think I do think it's realistic that they know Ben Johnson's not going to want to play. Not going to want to coach the Jets.
Okay, I mean, I agree with you. I just thought it was interesting that they weren't even going to try. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
It is also possible that they reached out to him but didn't get anything in return.
That's true. That's true. And now they're just saying we didn't even want him type thing.
Sure.
I mean, I've got to tease you a little bit, but this would be the most Jets thing ever if they just go back to him, right? Do you think? Let's not even look at him as a head coach. Do you think Jeff Ulbrich stays as the defensive coordinator? Do you think he has any chance of that?
I don't think it's very realistic. I think it's possible, but I think any head coach would want to establish a very different culture. I mean, that's the first thing you're doing entering this organization, right? How can we make the players want to stay here, and how can we make the younger guys coming in have an identity, right? And again, talking about Rex Ryan with the Jets, there was an identity there. There was a culture. Look at Mike Vrabel with the Titans. They had an identity, a toughness, a feeling. Even Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins, right? That team, it means something to be a Dolphin. Even this season, when they've not had it going too well, right? There's a lot of camaraderie in the locker room outside of one guy named Tyreek Hill. So there's a lot that I think you could bring to the table for the Jets with moving on from Jeff Ulbrich, and there's not a whole lot you get from keeping him, in my opinion.
Okay, I know he said he expected to be interviewed for the head coaching job, but I don't think he really has done anything to earn it, in my humble opinion. But Mike McDaniels, you mentioned him. He's keeping his coaching job. I think he should. They only had one bad season. I am interested to see what happens with Tyreek Hill. I did think it was kind of funny that last night in his press conference, Tyreek Hill said he wanted to request a trade, and then Mike McDaniels said, "Oh well, we'll talk about that later. I'm not going to put too much weight into the emotions right after a game." And then Tyreek Hill doubled down on X later on. So Tyreek Hill might be on a new team next season. We'll see there. But yeah, Mike McDaniels is staying with the Miami Dolphins. Anthony Weaver, though, is getting some coaching interviews, though. So the Bears have reached out to him, it looks like. And I believe there was one other team that I had down, but can't find them right now. But yeah, so Anthony Weaver, the Dolphins defensive coordinator, is getting some interviews. So we'll see what happens there. Bengals, my boys. Bengals made a move. They made a lot of moves, actually. I was kind of shocked. And if there are any Bengals fans watching right now, you guys were probably also a little bit surprised that they actually did something. And I know some fans are mad that Zach Taylor didn't get fired. But you know what Zach Taylor did do? It's being reported that Zach Taylor was actually the one who fired Lou Anarumo, who fired Frank Pollock, who fired the defensive lines coach. They fired a bunch of guys today. Lou Anarumo being the biggest, obviously. And I don't really feel that bad about Lou Anarumo because I think he's going to get a job very quickly. I think that he will be one of the prime defensive coordinator coaches in this upcoming cycle right now. And that's because Lou is a good coach if he has the veterans already on the team and he's with a team that is going to continue to sign their stars, right? Where Lou started to fall off was when the Bengals started letting guys like Jesse Bates, DJ Reader, Chidobe Awuzie even kind of walk. And Lou didn't know how to adjust to that. Lou didn't know how to match his schemes for all these young guys. The Bengals defense this year was extremely young, and they were extremely lost for the majority of the season. And then as you kind of watched this team of young guys kind of grow closer together, but also the scheme get easier or less complex, they started playing a little bit better. They weren't perfect by any means. Don't get me wrong. They still need to sign some guys to draft some guys, figure stuff out. But they got better over time as the scheme got fixed. And this was another team where change needed to happen. You wasted Joe Burrow, probably would have been MVP if they hadn't have gone 9-8. Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown. Trey Hendrickson was the sacks leader. Just an insane offensive performance. And the defense just wasted it away. This team was one win away from the playoffs, and there were 7 games that ended within 1 score. And yes, you can put some of that on Zach Taylor too. I'm not defending Zach Taylor at all. But I think what happened was they were told, Zach, you have 1 more year to fix this because you've got his offense was cooking. Zach is an offensive guy, and his side of the ball was doing everything right. And so he had to step up and fire these other guys. And Frank Pollock, the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator, he's needed to go for a while too. This was the season to kind of show us that he knew what he was doing. These are all guys that have come within his tenure there. These are all guys he's coached up, and they just aren't figuring it out. We have 2 of the worst guards in the NFL now. Amarius Mims is good. Ted Karras is, I think, good, but his grade drops a little bit because he's trying to cover for Kappa and Volson. Then Orlando Brown Jr. is good. And Cody Ford, I think, is a great backup, very versatile. But the run game needs help too. Just Frank Pollock had to go. And Zach knew that. And he made the move, supposedly. So now it is the front office's turn to go sign some guys. Get these extensions done that need to get done. T, Trey, and Jamar are obviously the big ones. So ball's in their court, in my opinion, but I think that the Bengals have started the offseason off very well and surprised me in a lot of ways that they fired these guys so quickly. So I don't know what happened behind closed doors. But what do you think? What were your like kind of reactions to that behind as an outsider who doesn't really follow the
I
team
mean,
as much?
watching the that game against the Steelers, right? It was, I mean, it was a great game, and it really showed you a lot of what that team should be and what that team could be, right? And that defense still, as you pointed out, we were talking about the game a little bit. They still didn't have everything going for themselves, right? They still didn't really get the rush they needed. But Trey Hendrickson, right, a guy who stepped up, and Trey Hendrickson ultimately had the biggest impact of any player on defense that day. And you look on offense, right? You see Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow put together a very good performance in spite of losing T Higgins, right? And again, you see guys step up. And the Bengals are that team where guys step up. They come together well, and that to me is why I like Zach Taylor. Right? He tends to get good performances from guys. And I've been over. We've talked about this plenty of times before. I know. I've been probably the most supportive of Zach Taylor from the No Buts About It crew, but I really like what he does with that team. And I know there's plenty of issues when it comes to his time, game time management, things like that. But you know what? His locker rooms are very good. Those guys, they want to play there and they want to be a Bengal. That means something that I think a lot of fans just aren't realizing. And as a Jets fan who's watching, DJ Reed asking to leave, who's watching Sauce Gardner, sorry, not Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall implying or making jabs or wanting to leave the team throughout this season. And I've seen that with so many guys. Basically, every year I've been a fan, there's like 3 guys, 4 guys, starters who want to leave the team, right? It means something to have a guy like Zach who he keeps guys there and he brings guys to the team as well.
Yeah, I have always said like if there's one thing you have to give Zach Taylor is that his locker rooms stay together. There was never a single point this season where the offense pointed at the defense and said they're the reason we're losing. Everyone knew that. Everyone who watched the Bengals play knew that. That I would say 7 out of 8 of the losses were on the defense. And they never really, there was never any bickering, at least that made it out into the public. And that's great. That's great for the team. And that I think is a positive for Zach Taylor.
Maybe the Titans game.
The Titans game?
Yeah, Joe Burrow got a bit upset out there.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe well, outside of that, I think it's crazy how put together the team is.
Yeah. The thing about Joe that I've kind of noticed this season especially is he wants, what makes him so great is he wants perfection. And he's only ever going to blame himself for losses. He threw 5 touchdown game, but he threw one interception against the Raiders and he was livid. It was the worst performance of his life because he threw that one interception. So that's part of what makes him so great. And I think that's kind of what happened with the Titans as well. Although that offensive performance was a little rough against the Titans. Actually pretty rough. That was bad. But what bothered me with Lou Anarumo, let's talk about the Steelers game since you brought that up. Steelers number 2. What they did during the Steelers game was they went to Russell Wilson as a defense and they said, we aren't going to let you throw under and we aren't going to let you throw deep. We will let you throw the intermediate. And Russell Wilson doesn't like to do that. Russell Wilson loves the deep ball. We all know that. And in Steelers 1, that's all they did was take away the deep ball. But that allowed for Russell Wilson to chip and chunk his way down the field. And that's why they lost. And I think they had over 500 yards in offense. Terrible performance. Steelers number 2, Lou adjusts and says, you're only getting the intermediate throws. So we're going to make you uncomfortable in that way. And they took away George Pickens. So that forced Pat Freiermuth to have to make the plays, which Pat Freiermuth is a fantastic tight end. But Pickens had 1 catch for 0 yards in that game. They completely eliminated him. And that frustrates him. And once he gets frustrated, that offense kind of starts to fall apart. So Lou attacked them in the right way in game number 2. However, it took a whole nother game number 1 to figure out how to do that. And Lou's defense also is his scheme conceptually is bend, don't break, which works fine when you have veteran guys who can tackle and are going to be quick to the ball, and you know that you can trust them to go one-on-one in open field, right? But it doesn't work well when you have a bunch of young guys who can't tackle or don't know how to tackle for some reason, and then they kind of start to fall apart, and you get all these broken tackles and breakaways. That's how bend, don't break gets broke. So that's why I want to move away from that kind of offense, that even lets any soft coverages at all. And I know we talked about this earlier today, you and I. I've already picked out who I want the new defensive coordinator to be. And there are all sorts of rumors, but it seems like the fan favorite is, the fans are with me on this one. It's former, I'm looking for his photo here because I know I downloaded it. But anyway, okay, I don't have it. But anyway, former Jets head coach Robert Saleh needs to be the Bengals' new defensive coordinator. So you tell me what you think about Robert Saleh as a defensive guy, not as a head coach, just as a defensive guy, and I'll tell you why I want him.
The biggest thing that comes to mind with me is his ability to find talent on defense. I mean, he's found guys just as UDFAs, as free agents. Quincy Williams, probably one of the most impactful players on the Jets right now. He was picked off of waivers, right? Robert Saleh is a guy who knows how to find talent, and as a DC, that makes a big difference, especially because defense, you really need 15 plus guys to have a big impact in the game for the defense to work well. And for it to be a great defense, you need like 20 guys to perform at a high level to have a good defense. So Robert Saleh, he can find those guys. And for Cincinnati, a team where you're going to have, as you mentioned, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, guys on big contracts, that's going to take away a lot of that cap space really, really fast. And if you have a guy like Robert Saleh who knows how to find the talent on the defensive side of the football, that is a big, big plus. The only thing I didn't like about, or one of the biggest things I didn't like about Robert Saleh was his inability to take responsibility. And we talked a bit about this with the Bengals, how the Bengals, everyone takes responsibility for themselves. There's a very good kind of feeling in that locker room, a very good vibe, so to speak. I don't know if Robert Saleh helps that or hurts that. I think I'm thinking he might hurt that.
Okay, well, hopefully he doesn't, because I really like I like everything you just said, but also I went back and watched some video of his defenses, even going back to the 49ers earlier today. And something I noticed is he loves cover 3. He loves to keep players backing coverage. He doesn't blitz that often. And he rotates the defensive line out a lot, which I think is probably why the Jets never really have a guy who is leading in sacks, because he's not getting as many snaps. You have guys with high sack totals like Quincy Williams, but you don't have, or is it Quinnen Williams? Which one's the DE?
Quinnen, yeah.
Quinnen
is a D tackle.
Okay. You have too many brothers on your team. But you have obviously great pass rushers, but they only play like 60% of snaps because Robert Saleh is constantly pulling them and flipping them out so they can stay fresh. And his defense is very simple. He doesn't try to force players to do stuff that they aren't necessarily good at. And he just says, pass rushers, rush the passer, defensive backs, cover your guys. And that's where they go with that. And they watch their leverages. And because it's so simple, the corners know if they have a safety stacked above them, who's going to come down and help them for leverage. They know that if they need to drop down, like their guy runs a quick curl route, that there's a safety who can come across and grab that guy who's running a slant. And they don't have to worry about picking and choosing. It's a simple it's a simple defense, but it works. And I really like that because with these young guys, that's what we need again. And I'm not saying you stick just with these young guys, but you still bring in some veterans, but you want the simplest defense that works as well. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't make things harder than they need to be. Um, I just think that he does a very good job of that, and the Bengals defense will benefit from that a lot. We've seen the 49ers defenses, how they looked. We saw the Jets defense looked phenomenal, and then Robert Saleh leaves and it takes a step back, right? So are you saying post Robert Saleh Jets defense is as good as Robert
No,
Saleh?
I'm putting a different reason to why the Jets defense fell off.
Okay,
And I think it comes down to personnel because when you look at his D lines, both with the 49ers and the Jets, you've had 6 starter quality linemen throughout most of his time on the Jets. You've had about that on the 49ers. They've always had good personnel there. And I think this year you had the weakest D line he's probably ever worked with, right? At the tackle position, outside of Quinn Williams, you had no one, right? Our number 2 was Lecky Fotu, right? Who even is Lecky Fotu, right? Like, do the math here. So Quinn Williams was the only tackle they had this season who was good, and you saw from day one the rush did not look the same. And at the edge position, you had 3 guys, one of them who didn't start the season, who was a starting level player, and the guy who didn't start the season, Hassan Reddick, when he came back, he's been terrible. So I think the reason the defense fell off was because he didn't have the personnel, and that's one of the harder things when you have a system that is so simple. You need the guys, the individual players, to step up because when you have those more complex defenses, the coordinator has the ability to kind of finesse the system a little bit, and you see that with the Seahawks. Look at the Pete Carroll days, right? A lot of finessing the system, trying to confuse the quarterback. You don't see that on the Jets, but the reason they succeeded is they had good cornerbacks and a really, really good pass rush.
Yeah, and I do think that the Bengals players are trying. Like this whole thing with like they're not even putting in effort. I don't think that's true. I truly believe a lot of them just got confused. And there are guys like Cam Taylor Britt that I have no idea what's going on with him. Last year he looked like a top corner. I was worried about how we were even going to re-sign him. And then this season he's causing penalties. He seems to forget pass interference is a thing. Like it just like he just fell off so hard. And that's something whoever comes in is going to need to work with. And I get that, but I guess even this season, the D line was the same with Robert Saleh as it was after he left, right?
Got slightly better, maybe. It's about the same.
It was about the same.
It got a
But
little better in the middle of the season, but I don't know. It didn't really change that much.
so, but what I'm saying is Robert Saleh was working with the same personnel group that Jeff Ulbrich was for the most part. And there was
Yeah,
still a statistical
you
difference.
you had Hassan Reddick come in.
Yeah. And it's not like Quinnen Williams left with Robert Saleh or something, and that's what we can point to as the reason the stats were so different.
Well, you had your best edge leave.
Your best edge left with Robert Saleh?
No, Jermaine Johnson got injured.
Okay. Okay. I see what
So
you're
that
saying.
that to me is like because after that it was Will McDonald and uh, then the ghost of Hassan Reddick. So I think that was the big reason. Just the fact that you didn't have the personnel you usually have. Last season you had JFM. He was playing both as an edge and tackle at times. You had Michael Clemens who was playing at a slightly better level. And then you had Bryce Huff, right? Bryce Huff looked amazing on the Jets. Now he looks like terrible on the Eagles. So I don't know what happened to him, but he looked great on the Jets, right? He's playing very well. So you had a lot better personnel there.
Okay. Well, I won't lie. You have worried me a little bit about Robert Saleh. I may have to go back into my toolbox and figure out who I want to look at.
I do think personally he's probably the best option you're going to get. I think he's the best option out of like D coordinator options in this coaching class. I really don't think there's too many better names out there. I mean, who else would you consider?
I wouldn't consider him because I don't think it'll happen. But another name that's been flying around is Al Golden, who was the linebackers coach for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2020 and 2021. So he worked with guys like Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson, Akeem Davis Gaither when they were very young in their career, or even rookies. So that's someone who people are kind of saying, hey, Notre Dame might win a national title. Maybe Al Golden comes back to the Bengals for the defensive coordinator position in the NFL, but I think he's getting paid a lot of money by Notre Dame. And that program is great. People are also trying to say Marcus Freeman is going to leave Notre Dame to be a head coach somewhere, like with the Jaguars after Doug Peterson got fired. I don't see that happening. I think Marcus Freeman and Al Golden both stay at Notre Dame just because that program it's on the up. And Marcus Freeman has done so much good for Notre Dame's football program and really just the culture of the football team in general. So I wouldn't bet too much money on him coming back to be the Bengals defensive coordinator. But crazier things have happened.
Yeah, I don't think either of them would be bad options. But Notre Dame is definitely a fun place for both of them. I doubt they will leave even with the national championship. I hope you could get one of them because they seem, in my opinion, like better options in terms of scheme. I don't know too much about the head coach Freeman, to be honest, but I think Golden would be a better option than Saleh right now, at least. I think Saleh needs a little bit of time removed from the game in order to figure things out. But if he approaches the game differently and he comes in, he's not so much of blaming other people when things go wrong. Because who knows? Maybe next year the Bengals start off 0-5, right? And you have that chance to turn the season around. But if you have your defensive coordinator spreading negativity, blaming other people, blaming his players, blaming his staff members, I don't think it's going to help the team there.
If the Bengals start off 0-5 next season, Zach Taylor's not going to have a job. Or shouldn't have a job. So we have other fish to fry in that scenario that you've laid out. But
let's say 0-3. I think if you start off and it's not the dream it's supposed to be, I would have a fear that Rob Saleh would act up and just not be too responsible.
The Bengals need to stop starting 0 and anything. They need to stop with these 0-2 starts. Zach Taylor is 1-11 in week 1 and 2 starts. He has won one of them in 6 seasons. You know what? If we would have beat the Patriots, both fan bases would have been happy. Bengals would be in the playoffs, and the Patriots would have the number 1 overall pick. But we couldn't beat Jacoby Brissett. So here we are. Anyway, yeah, I do like Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman has done. He's great for that franchise or the school and that team. So I don't see any of them leaving. Robert Saleh, hopefully he doesn't play the blame game. I really hope he doesn't, because he is my favorite to come in of the realistic guys that I think would be defensive coordinators for the Cincinnati Bengals. And we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, and I've done a little bit of research into Freeman. I saw him listed as a possible Jets head coach. Another fear with him I would have is that he just hasn't had enough experience, right? He's been a head coach for 3 years now, I think 3 or 4 maybe. He came on as his predecessor left the team, and he's done a good job there, right? I think he's won most of his bowl games. Obviously, this year he's in the semifinals, right? So he's doing plenty of good things there. But the jump from college to the pro level, it's not an easy one for a head coach.
And he just signed an extension too, so that's why I don't see him going anywhere. I don't even think it's on his mind. And although if you want a culture guy, I think Marcus Freeman is a fantastic culture guy. I cannot say enough good things about him. All the stuff that I found out, he started making them go to church again before the games at mass, and it's a Catholic school, obviously, so that's a big part of a lot of those guys' lives that are there, or should be at least in theory. So I like that, and just a big culture bringing the guys together. The players all seem to respect him. So I think Marcus Freeman would eventually be a fantastic NFL coach. I just don't think it's happening this offseason. We've got, I mean, we can go over, but we got 15 minutes here on the timer. But another guy who's going to be interesting. He's going to be fun. And commenters, let me know. There's 7 of you out there right now. But let me know what you think of this. So, Mike McCarthy is the Dallas Cowboys head coach currently. And Jerry Jones and his son, I think his name's Steven, have both said that, or alluded to the fact that they want him back. However, his contract ends January 14th. They have not extended him yet. And they haven't said that they're necessarily going to. So there are teams that have requested to interview him for their head coaching job. One of them is the Bears. Another team that he could go to is the Saints, who he used to be the offensive coordinator for, so he has ties there. Bears, he obviously knows the NFC North really well. Cowboys, he's already there. So there's a couple different scenarios we have here with Mike McCarthy. And what's weird about Mike McCarthy now is he is someone that we had, as we said at the beginning of the year, he was pre-fired. We thought he was already been fired. But now we don't even know if he's going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't think the Dallas Cowboys know if he's going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And they have a week to figure it out. But Stan, what are your thoughts just in general on Mike McCarthy?
You know, I read I think it was I don't know if it was a poster, letter, press release, whatever it was, from Jerry Jones. I think that came out this morning. But I read it at some point today, and I couldn't help but getting the feeling that the Cowboys need to move on because, Jones is just holding on to this old identity of the Cowboys. I think he has to move on from this Romo image of the team and realize the team just doesn't have that anymore. Dak Prescott, the offensive system you have there, there's a lot that has to be done there, right? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I think you need to move on so you could find a head coach who can create that new system for this team. And McCarthy's a guy who, it's not like he's been there that long, right? And it's also, it's not like McCarthy has failed so much as a head coach, right? Outside of the season, he's consistently brought them good winning seasons with trips to the playoffs, but he's never won it for them. He's never had the NFC Championship. He's never had the Super Bowl. Has he had a championship? I'm forgetting.
I don't know that he's won a playoff game with the Cowboys, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean he's never had any real run, and I remember I was watching that game with you when they had Ezekiel Elliott line up as center. And then this season, they went and brought him back to be a normal running back this time. But still, I think Jones has to move on from this image of the team that he's crafted, right? You have to let this team evolve into something else. And looking at Elliott especially, that's what I feel, right? That Jerry Jones is just holding on to this old version of the team.
So a couple of things. Mike McCarthy is 1-3 in the playoffs, so he has won one playoff game. Second thing, it's funny you bring up Ezekiel Elliott because he was just signed to the LA Chargers practice squad. So there you go. A little news break for you guys who are here. Ezekiel Elliott is going to likely be J.K. Dobbins' backup as they go through the playoffs here.
Chargers win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I guess. Whatever. Trying to make the post here. But yeah, I think you're right. Jerry Jones needs to let go of the GM role, in my opinion. He said this past week that he didn't buy the team as an investment. He bought it to be a part of it. And okay, but also you're not very good at it, Jerry. And you said like the same exact day because people were like, oh, they benched Cooper Rush because Cooper Rush was super close to getting a $250,000 bonus if he got a certain snap count. And Jerry Jones was like, oh, I didn't even know about Cooper Rush's contract. I didn't know that incentive was in there. So there are two options here. in Jerry Jones's world. And he either doesn't know the contracts he's handing out to players, or he is just kind of lying, which I think it's more likely the second one, personally. But that's my issue with the Dallas Cowboys, and it sounds like we've got the same issue. And I don't think I'd want Mike McCarthy if I was a coach. And, the Bears are one of those teams that he might go to or is being looked at for. And I don't know that I would want him as a guy to develop my young quarterback right now, especially when Ben Johnson is allegedly interested in the job. I would go after him. Ben Johnson is the only guy I'd really feel comfortable with who doesn't have head coaching experience for the Bears. But let's look at some of those other Bears coaches that they've got. So right now, the Bears need both. I got my spreadsheet here. The Bears need an offensive coordinator, likely because their interim coach right now is their offensive coordinator, and I don't think he stays. And then they obviously need a head coach. So they fired Matt Eberflus after that ridiculous Thanksgiving game, and they've been kind of just free falling as we go here. And I made a bunch of Bears fans mad, and I'm sorry. But Stan, what are your thoughts on the Chicago Bears?
I think it's a super attractive position, right? And you mentioned Johnson there. I think there's a reason he wants to go there. For one, you're talking about a team that just now made some of the biggest signings, right? It had the biggest offseason of any team in the NFL. I don't think there's really a big argument about that, right? Besides maybe the Chargers, right? The Bears did the most this offseason. Their roster looks so much better, but they couldn't bring it together. And that to me is the issue with the Bears, right? They keep on, even with their past quarterbacks, they keep on getting right there to the edge, but never able to make those final steps. And right now, you have a quarterback who the Bears are very confident in. I think most fans are very confident in. You have enough weapons on that offense, but you need a head coach who could discipline and really bring those players in, make sure they're putting in the effort game in, game out.
Yeah. So I think Keenan Allen is a free agent. I could be wrong, but would you bring Keenan Allen back, first of all, if he is a free agent?
I don't even have a take on that. I'm not gonna. I mean, I don't even know.
I broke him. Okay. I would look at what he wants, honestly, and just go from there, which is kind of a cop out, I guess. But yeah, he is a free agent, so see where he ends up. But one thing, so first, let's just talk about Caleb Williams because he is the center of this whole thing. I think you have to focus on developing him. And I think he has a ton of very positive traits. And Bears fans will defend him to no end. And I respect it. I do. But you have to admit that he's not perfect yet. He isn't. No, none of the quarterbacks are perfect. Lamar Jackson isn't perfect. They all have flaws. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. And that's fine. But you need to bring in a coach who is going to work with him and develop him and show him these things and understands what the quarterback needs. And I think aside from any coach like Josh McCown, who has been a quarterback's coach right now, I think, or a guy who has had coaching experience in the past, I think Ben Johnson is a good spot because he is raw, so he doesn't have a bunch of baggage carrying him. He's not going to feel like he has to succeed because, I was a head coach at this other team and it failed, and now I've got to prove myself like someone like Ron Rivera might. But he also seems very understanding of his players, and he doesn't force the players to do something that they're not comfortable with or not capable of. And that's very important as well. That's something that bothers me with a lot of coaches is they take their scheme and they try to lay it on the players and they don't make the actual scheme for the players that they have. And I think that's why the Lions offense works so well because they have fun and they get to do what they want to do. They try new things. Ben Johnson sits down with Jared Goff and they say like, what can we do to improve this offense? And that's how they come up with all these trick plays. That's how they came up with the play. I don't know if you saw it, but Jared Goff stumbled during the handoff, and it ended up turning into it was a fake stumble play. And that started off, according to Jared Goff, with Ben Johnson saying, "Can you fumble on purpose and then pick up the ball and throw the touchdown?" And Jared was like, "No, I'm not doing that." But that's the type of dialogue those guys have. That's how they get these plays. And I think that if Ben Johnson comes in and shows that he's confident in Caleb Williams, as he should be, because again, I do think Caleb Williams does have positive traits, but is also willing to say, "Hey, Caleb, these are some things we need to work on, and let's have that dialogue together." I think that will be very beneficial for Caleb's development, and they might end up actually keeping him through his rookie contract instead of trading him or not extending him like they did with Mitch and Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams is again the biggest part of this equation with the Bears, and I used that word discipline earlier with what I want from the next coach for the Bears, and I mean that a lot about Caleb Williams. I think he is undisciplined, and I don't mean that with crazy penalties or whatever. I mean his mentality is not there throughout 4 quarters. He will give up on games, and you've seen this if you've watched the Bears. He does not look like the same guy in the third quarter of a losing game as he looks in the first. And he gives up sometimes in the second quarter. You'll see a very clear decline in his play and in his aggressiveness as the game goes on. He needs a head coach who can say, "Hey, I know we're down by 3. We can get back up here, Caleb. You need to stay with me. You need to, give me the effort through 4 quarters in." Because that's the big thing with Caleb. Like you see him, he will get scared. If there's too much of a pass rush there, he takes a step back and then the game's gone.
Yeah, I think he's used to being able to scramble and play hero ball in college, and that has led to him taking a lot of sacks. And obviously everyone wants to blame the Bears offensive line, and they're not great either, don't get me wrong. But I do think Caleb does create a lot of sacks for himself. And Joe Burrow has that problem too at times. So it doesn't even necessarily make him mean he's going to be a bust or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he needs a coach who will help him to learn how to help the team and coach him up, like you said, because I do think Caleb Williams is very talented, and I don't want the Bears to mess him up like they did with Justin Fields.
Since I'm the fan of the president of the Zach Taylor fan club, let's bring in Zach Taylor here. You talk about Joe Burrow, but look how Zach Taylor molded him to get out of those habits. Even like the way he was sliding, right? That was a meme. I remember his rookie year. But look at how he's improved and become a lot more polished, and the mentality was there. Now with Joe Burrow, he had that dog in him from day one. I don't think Caleb Williams has that yet. I think he needs that discipline. He needs to, get himself together. But just look at what Zach Taylor, as a head coach, did for Joe Burrow. I think that's a big part of the equation. I know we haven't talked about the Bengals in about 40 minutes now, but just to bring it in.
No, I mean, and I think Zach Taylor is good at a lot of things. I do. I really do. My issue with Zach Taylor is that he's still making rookie coach mistakes in year 6 with time management and when to be aggressive, when to be conservative. It's like there's just things where it's like an 8th grader playing Madden knows when to do this. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when in the first Ravens game, here's an example. You had Nate Wiggins hadn't been able to really stop Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow all game. Rookie first rounder, talented corner, but it's Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. So there were multiple snaps where they were one-on-one, and we just kept running the ball up the middle. We settled for the field goal on the first down with plenty of time left, and then we missed the field goal and went into overtime. And it was like, you could have taken 1 or 2 shots at the end zone. Jamar Chase one-on-one against a rookie CB? Come on. Anyone knows to do that. You got the best quarterback in the NFL this season. Sorry, Lamar and Josh. I just think it's true. And you got the Triple Crown winner. And you didn't think that they could stop a rookie CB from, breaking something up? Got to believe in your guys, Zach.
Okay, but you say that, and I raise you this. You and every other Bengals fan, was criticizing Zach Taylor, and you criticized me when I said Zach Taylor made the right decision in that Steelers game when he got those extra few yards against the Steelers kicker, made that kick a little bit tougher. I think I see what you're saying about that, especially with the time management issues with Zach. That should not be happening, but he also has gotten so much better at taking those good risks, right? And look at that. His defense that he was more than aware was not a great defense. He trusted them, and he got a better outcome. With a field goal of that length, I think in the end it was a 55 or 54-yard field goal, right? With a field goal of that length, just getting 2 extra yards makes that a little bit tougher. Even the mental part of kicking, that makes it a little bit tougher for that kicker. And things like that, I see Zach Taylor and I see a head coach who knows how to trust his guys just as much. So I do think Zach Taylor's improving. I don't know. This stream has changed me, man. That game last week has changed me, or 3 days ago has changed me. I'm now the biggest Zach Taylor fan out here.
He punted back to the Chiefs within the 2-minute warning.
That's fine.
No,
it's a mistake. It's one okay, but that's one bad thing, and I gave you one great thing.
We shouldn't be talking. It wasn't a great thing. He still got the 3 points. It didn't make a difference.
I thought it was a good, aggressive move. It did make a difference.
Yeah,
regardless of the outcome of the play, he got a better outcome for his team, right? Regardless of the outcome, he got a better situation for his team. He has, even if it's a 5% better possibility, right, for his team, a 5% chance increased that the kicker misses. That's still a positive play for a coach who took a big risk, because 99% of coaches would just give up one play earlier and say, hey, get the free field goal.
Okay. I like I said, I like Zach Taylor, but he makes a lot of weird mistakes that he shouldn't be. Let's just, before we end here, let's go over the final couple openings. We don't need to cover them, but just so people are aware, and I'll be keeping track of this spreadsheet as we go throughout the year and updating it. Browns offensive coordinator position is open. Ken Dorsey was fired. Obviously, the Patriots head coaching position is open, with Gerard Mayo being fired an hour after they beat the Bills. The Raiders offensive coordinator position is open. Luke Getsy was let go, and he's apparently back with the Packers already in an unofficial capacity. Doug Peterson was let go, the Jaguars head coach, earlier today, where Zach Taylor's brother, Press Taylor, is the offensive coordinator. So a little fun fact for you, Stan. Bears head coaching position is open. Matt Eberflus was fired after he forgot how to use a timeout. Seahawks offensive coordinator position is open. They released, I forget that, Suggs, I think is his name. They fired him earlier today. And then obviously the New Orleans Saints head coaching position is open as well. Aaron Glenn is a guy they're really looking into, that defensive coordinator, the Lions defensive coordinator. And then surprisingly to me, Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. We could probably make a whole separate video about that. But I appreciate everyone who did stop by the stream today. I appreciate Stan for joining us here. Stan, do you have any final words you would like to say before we leave?
Zach Taylor, coach of the year, coming up next year.
You may actually get killed in the comments by Bengals. Bengals fans, don't be too mean to Stan. He doesn't know. He doesn't get the frustration. He's a Jets fan. They're happy with 4 wins. They're satisfied with that. But okay. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it, like I said. And if you could go ahead and like and subscribe, it helps us out, helps me and Stan out, helps Chuss out, even though he's not here right now. We appreciate all of you who have subscribed. And until next time, go do something nice for someone.